Sometimes you can do everything right and still not get the result you want. This, as the saying goes, is life. I was chatting with my friend DJ recently. He plays baseball in Austria in the summer and fall. He's a pitcher and shared something with me that I'd never really thought about. I guess simply being that I'd never pitched, right? But I love baseball, grew up watching the Sox, and really love the metaphors for life. I've talked a lot about that sort of parallel. Most of them we've heard, right? Like a batter that hits 300, which is essentially 3 hits out of every 10 at bats, excluding walks, is an above average player. That's a lot of failure. That means they fail more than twice as much as they succeed. Right, we've all heard that, on and on and on. But this angle I'd never heard, right? We were a few of us sitting at dinner, and he said, there are times when the catcher calls for a particular pitch, places his catcher's mitt exactly where he wants the ball, and then, DJ is the pitcher, receiving the call and seeing the glove, could theoretically execute on that pitch perfectly. He could release the ball, have it move exactly the way he wants it to, on trajectory to land right in the catcher's mitt, but still, the batter makes contact. Somehow, the pitcher did exactly what he was supposed to and still gives up a hit. And I'm listening to him describe it, and it was so matter-of-factly. When he was talking about it, I was sort of anticipating some animation. I feel like I would be so dramatic if that were me, right? And the guy still somehow gets a hit. But that's not what it was like. He was just, it happens. You have to immediately forget about it and think about the next pitch. You're always immersed in one thing, the pitch you're throwing. And I just thought that was so cool and so powerful. And see, here's the thing, right? None of this is an avoidance of responsibility. I think he'd agree with regard to baseball, certainly in life. The vast majority of circumstances, let's face it, they are self-created. Not all, but certainly most. And the ones that aren't, it's often on us to have, prepared for that unknown. But when I know I fell short, or I can measure where I didn't hit the mark, it's frustrating, sure, but at least it's understandable. It makes sense in my head. It's the way things should be. I wasn't good enough, therefore the result was X. It's easier to get over those things. Also, because you now know what must be done to improve. The times, however, when we feel like we've given our all, done what we were supposed to, and life still smirks and says, nope, not today, it just hurts a little more. It's like my parents trying to explain to me gently as a child that life isn't fair. Well, that childlike frustration doesn't seem to leave, right? It's on us to properly internalize and digest the reality. Just like a pitcher hitting his spot and still getting crushed, there is a patience and short-term memory required. Plenty of examples, right? You can be there for someone, go out of your way to be kind, add value, make their life better, and still get mistreated. That's not fair, but it happens. Another example, just kind of off the top, right? You can invest your money, do exactly what you're supposed to, the whole 401k thing. And the stock market takes a dive. Is that fair? Technically, you knew the risk. It's still frustrating. You did what you were supposed to, right? You can practice something for months or years and still not make the cut. You can eat healthy, live a healthy lifestyle, and still get sick. Fair? I mean, not on paper, but it's life. In theory, there's a certain reciprocity you come to expect from the universe that never arrives, right? Greatness is observing, learning not to take it personally, and moving on, right to the next pitch. If you fixate on what let you down, you give that thing power over you. Here's another sort of different angle on this, right? Someone recently sent me a link to his Substack, and I was taking a look around the platform, right? I'd never really explored it. and came across an article by Dan Coe, who's another content creator on a variety of social media platforms. And, in this article, he's listing off all his failed businesses. And I almost couldn't believe it, right? Not because it didn't make sense, but because I'd always known the guy as, an intelligent media personality with millions of followers. I never took the time to think about him struggling through failed, drop shipping businesses, SEO consulting, marketing agencies. The list just seemed to go on and on and on. And you can almost feel that sort of short-term memory baked into his journey. Now, I don't know him. This is all speculation, but it would only make sense, right? To have evolved that far, to have continuously moved on. Sometimes life just shakes its head, and you can't personalize it. You can't see it as the world chaining you down or you not being good enough. It's like, you learn from this experience. Depersonalize it emotionally. Next pitch, next thing, next adventure, onward. You just can't stop. Don't get lost in what's gone. Sometimes our idea of reciprocity and validation is respected, and life makes sense, and all is well in the world. Things are quote unquote as they should be. But sometimes things feel unfair. Whether you're a pitcher hitting the right spot and still getting hit, an entrepreneur in the arena, in the battlefield, putting in work and not having it click, or toddler Eddie, right? Taken aback by the notion that suddenly there are no more push pops in the freezer. Growth is knowing that fairness, or life's supposed to's, they are a guide. They're not the rule. And if you feel slighted by life when it pulls the rug out from under you, and it will to all of us at some point, then you're losing the very thing that will make you great. You can't stop someone who refuses to quit, who stays composed, and who simply moves forward. Next pitch. One thing I've learned over the years is that consistency usually doesn't break because we lose motivation. It breaks because we leave too many things to chance. You can have the goals, the plan, the discipline, but if your day gets busy, suddenly it's 2 p.m. and all you've had is coffee and nothing else, that's when momentum can slip. And that's why I'm so excited to partner with today's sponsor, Huel. That's Huel. I've been loving their Black Edition powder. It's a meal replacement, not just a protein powder with 40 grams of protein, 27 essential vitamins and minerals, and 0 artificial sweeteners. When I'm moving fast, I can shake it. Under a minute, I'll have something ready to go. I can also just grab one from the fridge. But when I have a little bit of time, and this has been pretty cool, I've been using it in some simple recipes. Lately, I've been making protein French toast with it, and it's become one of my favorite ways to get quality nutrition without overthinking it. It's like one less decision, one less excuse, one less thing standing between me and the standards that I set for myself. And if you're like me and you can only eat your vegetables when you throw them in a blender, I've also been using Huel Daily Greens Drink alongside it. So get Huel today with my exclusive offer, 15% off online using my code Eddie at huel.com/Eddie when you spend $50 or more. New customers only. Thank you to Huel for sponsoring this episode, and thank you for being here. Imagine with me a world where you stopped segmenting out the difficulty in your life as other than, where you stopped seeing the turbulence as an obstacle to your journey. Imagine with me life as a symphony, where everything works together to create the whole, where the high notes, the low notes, the pauses, the rests, the tempo changes, all contribute to the overall theme. None of it's unimportant or dismissible. How could it be? Without the low notes, the high notes don't mean anything. Without the rest, you don't get the satisfaction and the power of the moment that music re-emerges. In fact, it was the contrast that created the magic to begin with. All of it is needed, even when you don't understand why. You don't know that this slow beginning, the breaks, the tempo changes, that it will all be the reason you are soon awed by the crescendo that awaits. And how could you? It's one flow. The journey points in one direction. You are in this for the ride. See, in our lives, the obstacles, the chaos, the confusion, they hurt. They're unsettling, so the inclination is to dismiss them, to push them away. This isn't what I need. This is void of value, so get rid of it, we tell ourselves. When in reality, those things are integral components to your song. They are what culminate into your final piece. They're bringing you to that crescendo. Doesn't mean you have to love the challenging times, of course not. But it does mean we should understand that even though we can't see it unfolding before our very eyes, it's all playing a role. My hurt made me stronger. My struggle injected meaning into my life. It made the song richer, the sound sweeter. Today is what it is because yesterday was what it was. And I know when I'm face to face with something that my gut instinct deems to be detrimental, that two things can in fact be true at once. That I need to work to right the ship, to repoint the compass, but also understand that the storm wasn't void of significance. The valley wasn't all for naught. It's gifted me new oceans to cross, new mountains to climb, and new perspective as I peer out over the view. So as you move through the dark, as you navigate the chaos of night, know that the light you're chasing is only meaningful because of the depths you are emerging from. Life beyond these shadows is not where the world begins. It's a continuation of an already beautiful journey you're on. It's your symphony in totality. See, the time will come when you'll look back and you'll be grateful for the so-called inconveniences that surround you now. Your heart needs the contrast that this adversity creates. Your soul depends on the hardship to understand the magnificence of life. It's why now, when it hurts, you must keep going. You have to keep going. You have to let the notes materialize into the beautiful song it will become. The masterpiece it was meant to become. Deciding who you'd like to be most often starts with leaving the parts of you you no longer want to carry around. So reminisce. Think back. Examine. Because you didn't just arrive at today. This moment is the result of thousands upon thousands of steps and conversations and decisions. Our lives are sculpted like ocean shores, one wave, one gust of wind at a time. And sure, there were certainly events that expedited the process. But the point is, holistically, landscapes take time to materialize, as did this one. But you're not confined to this moment. In fact, you, in and of itself, is an idea. You is a story that incorporates the things you used to do,
places you used to go, people you used to know. You is not right now. You is how you summarize the path that created right now. But you can change, because you will always mean what you decide it does. So reminisce, think back, examine, and feel the warmth of the good times. Bask in the moments that lit up your soul. But don't be afraid to pull back the curtain on those things that, well, maybe you aren't too proud of. The things that no longer defined you, perhaps never defined you to begin with. Because see, before we cut ties with those stories and send them out to sea, we must do the hard work of recognizing what they are. Before we can identify the life to be lived, we have to be able to see the one that will live no more. And so it's okay to walk down that road. Those things are no longer you. They are ideas, old ideas, bad ideas, and so they will be relegated to the sands of time. They played their part, as everything does, and now it's time to detach. So reminisce. Think back, examine, grab what you love and let it become your guiding light. Take hold of the meaningful and pour it into the new you, the one you're making now, the one that matters now. You'll need it. Because the old you, it'll try to reemerge. It'll present itself in the shape of old faces with old expectations. Old places connected to old habits, old stories that just don't want to end. But these characters, they played their part. And thank God they did, because now they're recognizable. Now you know to cut ties. You know, I wish it weren't so. I think we all do, but sometimes life requires that we touch that burning hot stove in order to understand that it's hot. It's easy to dismiss these occurrences as a bad thing or wasted time, but I think they're a beautiful thing. Recognizing and mitigating our mistake leaves us with a new foundation to build on, a blank canvas. It makes you not a prisoner to yesterday's work, it makes you an artist again. A designer, a creator. So reminisce, think back and examine, but not to hold on. Reminisce to let go, to say the goodbyes that will make space for the hellos, to free yourself of excess that will make space for the necessities. You've spent a long time designing you. Some of it ideal, but all of it valuable in its own unique way. The reality is that now, in this current moment, not all of it needs to come with you. So reminisce, think back, examine, so that before you move ahead, you know exactly what needs to be left behind. Had a window seat on the plane a few days ago, and during the descent, I watched as we lowered into a thin layer of clouds, which anyone who's flown before knows creates turbulence, right? The plane starts to shake. For a brief moment, can't see anything outside the window, only white. And no matter how many times I watched this happen, and at this point, probably in the hundreds, I can't help but feel a little uneasy. Heart rate increases a little bit. It's just an uncomfortable thing. And here's the deal. Not only is a plane going through turbulence safe, a quick Google search will explain to you that no plane was ever brought down by turbulence. They were built specifically for that, to endure it. And I know that, I understand it, I believe it. I guess that, faint nervousness I feel highlights the divide between my mental capacity to understand something and, my physiological reaction to it. It shows, to put it simply, that often what's necessary will be uncomfortable. Right? Will get easier over time, but the point is there's a very real biological resistance associated with doing what's necessary. Even when we know the necessary thing is the right thing, even when we know we're capable of enduring the journey, right? Just like that plane was built specifically to endure turbulence. Well, in your own world, so were you. And yeah, that world might shake. Yeah, you might look around and see an unknown providing no clarity or visibility, at least in the moment. But that feeling of discomfort should not be interpreted as negative, a sign to stop or turn back, as a signal that the world is too much. No, it's where you close your eyes and remind yourself how much you can handle, despite life trying to make you feel to the contrary. You were built to overcome, made to push into uncharted territory, to take your losses and uncover the hidden away value within them. Sometimes to grow, it's required that we learn not to resist that trembling, but to see it as the courage to say yes, when it would have been infinitely easier to say no. And that's what this is about. Nothing groundbreaking, no secret formulas, just the reminder we often need but don't hear enough. That during the ascents and descents of life, and there are and will be many, know that you were built for the turbulence. You can harness the chaos, you can get through to the other side. What's required is simply that you remember who you are and what you're capable of. Because again, when visibility is limited and our worlds shake, it's easy to forget. You will not lose because of the challenge. You will win despite it again and again and again. And sure, stepping up to face that adversary, you may never detach from that nervous feeling in your stomach or the shaky hands, but that's okay. That's your indicator that you're alive, that you weren't tricked into submitting to a very beatable opponent, that you didn't turn away from the things that meant the most. What exactly are you afraid of? What's holding you back? As the giant rock you inhabit spins through the universe, a speck in a galaxy of stars, it's easy to look out and see the vastness of the world around you and forget entirely about the strength that you possess. Forget entirely that the mind's capacity is as infinite as those same stars that surround you. I don't think it's that we definitively choose to sell ourselves short. I think we simply lose sight of the fact that we have a say in the matter to begin with. Our fears keep us wishing. Our insecurities keep us hoping. We stay standing still when we should be moving forward. But truth be told, our pain comes from not doing, but wishing that we did. It's no coincidence that the more we fail, the more we realize life is a game that expands as we push. The power of making mistakes isn't the mistake itself, it's that when we get back up and brush ourselves off, our cognitive mapping of the world changes. We see that we can step out a little further. Our very definition of what's possible expands, and I believe that's what courage is. The willingness to step into that chaos of life, knowing that each time you find the strength to push forward, you are restructuring your reality. The resources are there, the tools are there, the opportunity is there. How crazy is the fact that we just need to convince ourselves that more is worth it? That the difficulty of short-term vulnerability isn't an enemy. It's the very ticket required for admission to the show. And so I ask again, what are you afraid of? Falling? Because you will rise, and you will rise stronger than you ever were. Is it criticism? Because one, people are so focused on their own endeavors that they look up way less than we think they do. And two, other than the small group you surround yourself with, why would you care? Is it pride? Because building things of significance requires starting on the ground floor, and there's no shame but honor in breaking down to build up. And when I look at my life in terms of chapters, right? Childhood, high school, college, 20s, 30s, the things that were my biggest concerns during each chapter are now laughable. And maybe, just maybe, if I saw that, I could have lived a little freer, been a little bolder. What if we were to get ahead of that learning curve? What if we understood that life is beautiful and flexible and exciting? And what if we understood that now? Instead of looking at this chapter 15 years down the road and chuckling to ourselves for not having the courage to have made the leap, taken the chance to have moved out into an unknown. We cannot physically see that which doesn't exist, which is why it's so important that we know we are the architects. That the fear pulsing through our veins is indicating that we are building, that we are choosing to step into a world that will give more if we find the courage to ask. So as this giant rock you inhabit spins through the universe, a speck in a galaxy of stars, perhaps each little light up there exists not to remind you how small you are, but to remind you that those same elements exist within you. To show you that the fire of a million suns sits in your soul, beats in your chest, waits for your signal now. So what are you afraid of?
When our backs are against the wall, we're forced to become more. When the clock is ticking, we are tasked with finding answers that hide among us. It's in the darkness we find light, and while lost, we find ourselves. The paradox of life is that from our pain comes our purpose, our evolution, and our greatness. I love thinking back to about 2014, making my way around Boston, having just quit my job, essentially purposeless, clinging to a YouTube channel and a podcast idea that I would name Your World Within. And why? Why do I think back? Why does this mean everything to me? Well, because at the time, I knew nothing. I understood nothing. Nothing about speaking or media, audio, video, nothing about running a business. But more importantly, I knew very little about life and what's truly required to progress in a world with infinite moving parts. I didn't know that my lack of understanding is what made everything feel overwhelming and complex, and that it was up to me to simplify. I didn't know the extent to which I'd have to befriend failure. And that was the most eye-opening realization. Because when you gravitate towards a risk-free existence and you box yourself in, as I had for so long, of course you don't get the upside, but you also don't fail as dramatically either. Life was a simple game of cause and effect. Do work, get result, not much room for more than that. And so stepping outside that box in the way that I did changed some rules. I learned some things. First, you can spend time on something, you can exhaust energy on something, and get nothing in the short term for your efforts. And I mean nothing. Unless you count getting your pride stomped on. Unless you count your friends disappearing when you need them most. Unless you count self-doubt and a constant worry about not amounting to anything. I mean, these are very raw, very real human emotions. They tend to arise when we start something new, but in them is also the power. This is where the light bulb turns on and the path emerges. It's where I learned that we only get what we want when we endure what we don't. And what a foreign concept when you think about it, right? It's like, Eddie, take this mic, go stand in front of this audience and pour your heart out. Your knees are shaking, chest is pounding, but dude, trust me, it'll be good for you. And funny enough, it was. It was because the fear in my stomach became the indicator that something new, something exciting, something more was around the corner. Like Pavlov's dog hearing that bell. Anytime the fear kicked in, I could feel myself getting closer to something meaningful, to a higher version of myself. The pain is an invite. The sheer terror, and let's face it, that's what it feels like sometimes, it's an upgrade. Disguised as the monster that you think you should be running from. When it is, as I recently mentioned, the adversary you should befriend. We have to change our relationship with discomfort because our initial understanding, the one that comes stock in our minds, is never sufficient to build anything of significance. Its default setting is to preserve the now, not expand it. And so just like those stock speakers that came in my 1999 Ford F-150 when I was in my early 20s, let's rip it out. Let's customize. Let's upgrade the quality of the sound we hear and the things we say to ourselves. What an advantage it is to know that the hard things are what make us level up. To find that awareness. What a blessing that when life's difficulty startles and scatters the masses, you could be the one that remains, standing tall, seeking out the advantage amidst the commotion. Every little act of courage becomes more and more meaningful, powerful. But we must lose ourselves to find ourselves. We must embrace our fears if we are to become courageous. We must fail in order to succeed. And sure, sometimes the price seems steep. But I promise, not going costs more. Wishing costs more. If onlys cost more. So maybe for you it isn't a YouTube channel or a speaking career. Maybe it's something totally different. But it is something. And should you bring yourself to pursue that which your heart pulls you to pursue, you'll have those moments of defeat where you're mad at yourself for leaving the comfort and safety of your previous world. You'll have times where you have no idea what to do, where you feel alone or stuck or unsure.
The difference will be whether you see this as the invite you've been waiting for or the reason to turn around and settle for less. That's the question. How do you internalize all that emotion that will feel like it is consuming you? I couldn't believe how strong that temptation was to go back, nagging at me every day. Just come off the edge. Just be comfortable again. But as my old coach would say in college, when we're doing wall sits or something physically taxing, 15 seconds. You can do anything for 15 seconds. And isn't life just a culmination of 15-second windows? It's compartmentalizing the process. It's turning the difficult into the advantageous. You have the ability to not think like everyone else. You have it within you to rewire your previous conceptions of the world, to see darkness not as your reason to hide from conjured up monsters, but as your invitation to become the light. Remember that the best way to be more is to have the courage to put your back against the wall. And you won't want to in the moment. There will never be a perfect time. But committing to that vulnerability will release from within you the power, the strength, the greatness that has been for so long tucked away. By moving into the chaos, you are simultaneously creating the calm you always dreamed of. You're realizing the possibility that just needed the door left ajar to make its way into your world.